these influencers that go, great, have fun, have a good time, you can have a laugh, but do a little bit of content. Like if I got to go, when I got to go into a garage for the first time, when I got to go to Silverstone, we were stood in the garage for the first time. It is unbelievable. Like, unbelievable. The sounds, what is happening, what is going on. Go and get your phone. Go and film some of that. Ask a mechanic what they're doing. Ask a mechanic how they got into that job. Just do a bit of imaginative content. It's not hard. Hello, and welcome back to The Fast and the Curious.
Hello. I'm fancy seeing you here. What a surprise that is. Hello. We're sat in a podcast studio. I didn't expect you to turn up. This is staying in the edit. Carry on.
Oh.
Hello. Hello and welcome to The Fast and the Curious. I'm Christian Hugill.
Jesus.
Betty Glover normally does this bit, but today is
Betty Glover.
incapable. This
Yeah.
is Betty Glover.
Betty Glover can't hold herself together or say hello properly, apparently. So I feel like this recording's going to go really
How
well.
surprised you were.
Our producer Jimmy's got his head in his hands right now. He's just beside himself. So I'm Betty Glover. This is Christian Hugill, our F1 knowledge gnome, which is what Greg called you last time out, which I think is a great name.
I like it. I've been called a lot worse, I can tell you.
Are we sticking with it?
Yeah, we'll stick with it if you want. If you want to come in knowledgeable gnome.
Knowledgeable gnome.
I'm knowledgeable gnome.
Yeah, I think it's good. We can get you a hat.
And a little fishing rod.
Yeah, some booties.
I've actually just ordered some booties.
Some booties.
Yeah, well, a festival I'm going to at the weekend looks muddy.
Oh,
So I've
right,
ordered some
some
emergency wellies, yeah.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah,
What
they're
colour?
lovely. Got them
Red?
half price as well. I'm really pleased about them. I'll bring them in next week.
Please do. Right, crack on then. You've got to read the next bit.
Oh, yes, me. It's going to be a very weird record, isn't it? It's been a hectic couple of months on the show, hasn't it? Which is probably why we're both sort of slightly...
Yeah, it feels like it's been quite intense.
It feels like end of term vibes, even though it isn't.
When's the summer break?
Yeah, so who we had on the show recently? We've had Alex Albon,
Yeah.
who then got points after his appearance,
You're
proving
welcome.
that being on this show gets you Formula One points.
It does, yeah.
Abby Pulling, Max Verstappen, who came on the show and then subsequently Red Bull sort of lost their form a bit, but we'll gloss over that. Ed Sheeran, Lando Norris, Leah Block, Oscar Piastri, Charlotte Tilbury MBE, comfortably my favourite of all of those people by a mile. And that's not even all of them. It's been very non-stop. But I was genuinely thinking this the other day, and then producer Jimmy popped it in the group chat. Do you know what we've not done for a long time?
What?
Hear from the listeners.
That is very true.
Our favourites. Sod the celebrities. I want to hear from the listeners.
You're right. We haven't heard from the listeners for ages, and we've actually got so many questions in our inboxes on Instagram and TikTok, etc., that we need to go through that we haven't really had time. So that is exactly what we're going to do today. So are you ready?
I am ready, I think, yeah.
Are you sure?
I'm sure. A bit of a Q&A special. We'll chat about other things as well, but
Yeah, of course.
we're going to throw lots of listener questions in along the way.
Is your brain turned on?
I think so. I've had a coffee, that's helped. I feel like my voice sounds quite deep today. Do I sound deep? Producer Jimmy?
Not really, I think you
I sound all
sound.
right, but no, I think I feel better than I sound.
So there are some questions for the gang, but mostly, Christian, there's questions for you. So we're going to revisit George Russell's notice board as well. We're also going to talk about
George Russell's
Pets
community
Corner.
notice board. Can we give it its
Sorry.
full name, please?
George Russell's community notice
Thank you.
board. We're going to talk about Pets Corner because everyone's been sending in their pets.
This is my favourite thing we've ever done.
Incredible. And we've got an amazing Formula One life hack that producer Jimmy cannot get over.
This
so we'll
is
talk
Jimmy's
about that as
favourite.
well.
Again, pet's my favourite thing we've ever done. This is Jimmy's favourite thing that's ever happened in F1, arguably.
I think ever happened in his life.
Just love it.
And he has had a daughter.
He's had a daughter. He prefers this.
So that says it all, really,
Yeah.
doesn't it? But considering we've just had Monaco,
We did.
I think this question from Izzy is a perfect place to start.
So after watching the Grand Prix this weekend, I have what might be an unpopular opinion, but I was wondering if Monaco should be on the calendar every 2 to 3 years, maybe rotate with another circuit. That way you could keep the legacy of and the history of this race, but also maybe not have this much of a boring race every year.
I've flip-flopped on my opinion on this over the years. If you'd had asked me this time last year, I think I'd have said, I don't want Monaco on the calendar
Oh, really?
because it's unsuitable for modern-day F1 cars. It used to be, when they were much smaller 15 years ago, you could still overtake. Now they're much bigger. It's gone from being hard to overtake to 99% impossible unless your tyre advantage is massive. I actually think I would like Monaco to stay on the calendar. It's what we were saying on the preview episode, where it's like you have to think of it as like, this is a one-off Grand Prix. All right, we're not going to get fast and frantic overtaking, but let's at least make it a really interesting strategy race. So I'd like for one race only. And some people say, oh, well, we shouldn't have rules just for Monaco. There are already rules just for Monaco in the regulations. There just are. So I think for Monaco, I think you've got to use the hard, the mediums, and the softs. That's the answer for me.
So you wouldn't change anything to do with the track? Because a lot of people have been given those options. I think one of the things that was mentioned was the run through the tunnel being lengthened.
It's almost impossible to do because of the geography of it. So people have said, put a DRS zone in the tunnel. That's dangerous. It's just not going to happen because of safety. I don't think rotate it with other ones on the calendar. I still like to keep it. But we've got, and other people in F1 say, oh, well, it's great for the occasion, not for the fans at home.
Yeah, so I saw somebody tweet this saying, well, look, when you're there and the people are there, it's incredible. And I was like,
but we're not there.
But a majority of Formula One fans are not there. So you've got to have a sporting race that looks good on TV and radio.
I think the balance between, I wouldn't rotate it like Izzy said, to be honest, the balance between keeping it as a sporting test and making it interesting for the viewer is basically a mandatory use of the hard, the soft and the mediums.
One thing that did come out of Monaco, though, that is really exciting is obviously that Charles Leclerc won, so he broke his Monaco curse, didn't he?
You like this whole curse thing, don't you?
I love this curse thing. So I was on the train down here and I was thinking about the fact that we've had two big curses broken very, very recently. So Charles Leclerc breaking his Monaco curse, and then Lando Norris won a Grand Prix. Lando no-wins won a Grand Prix. Another curse broken. So it got me thinking, actually. It'd be really nice if you could talk through the curses.
Talk through the curses.
Talk through the curses that have happened, the past, the present, and the future.
Well,
what could be broken? And the best way of you doing this, Christian, is by really getting into character, I think, and becoming a witch. Basically, every time we do this, you're going to become a little bit more witchy. So we'll start quite
Have
mediocre.
I got any say in this?
No, you know you don't.
Fine, good.
So
Jimmy's just off the screen, just got no.
Lights out, and on his broomstick he goes.
Oh God, the studio lights have gone green. For those only listening.
So, where did I put it? So we couldn't get a witch's hat at short notice, unfortunately. But next time we do this, we will get you a witch's hat.
Oh, good.
And then we'll
I'm
eventually end up with a cauldron, a broomstick, and a big nose.
Although what?
Don't need much help with that, do you? But I'll start with a big mole that I'll draw on your face.
Right.
Is that
What's
okay?
that you're drawing with it, please?
Eyeliner.
Oh, that's all right.
Where shall I do it, Jimmy?
No.
Just there.
Okay, right. What's this? What happened to this podcast?
Shall I give him a monobrow? Or
No, do not give me a monobrow. No, you don't push your luck. Sit down. What do I look like?
Get a little bit magical. Come on, you're putting curses on people here, Christian.
What do witches do? They have the laugh, don't they? Your witch's laugh's better than mine, and you were actually laughing.
No, that was incredible. That was incredible. Do it one more time.
Hang on, my witch's
Do it into
laugh.
the camera.
R.I.P. my Formula One credibility.
So come on then, talk to us about these curses.
Well, the first two are fairly self-explanatory. People were saying that Lando was cursed because, he couldn't quite get the win. He'd had all those seconds. He couldn't quite get the win. Broken. Miami did that for us.
Boom.
Charles Leclerc had been on pole position twice at Monaco and had stupid things go wrong and bad luck. And everybody thought, well...
DNF.
Yeah, everybody thought, well, surely... Because there was also, take, for example, Jenson Button. When I was growing up watching him, he seemed to just have the worst luck at Silverstone. And even in his Brawn GP title-winning year, it all went wrong. And unfortunately, that curse was never lifted. Jenson never won at Silverstone, which was always bad luck. So people thought with Charles, is he going to be a bit Jenson at Silverstone with his home Grand Prix? But that curse was lifted. I think there's one more curse, the big one, and there'll be a lot of people screaming at their earphones or at YouTube watching this and who know what I'm about to say. It's the Hulk.
The Hulk.
It's Hulk's lack of podium.
Nico
Hulkenberg has
Yeah.
driven so many Grand Prix, been in the sport years, been a proper stalwart of the sport, had a brief spell on the sidelines, a few years spell on the sidelines, and came back and earned his seat back because of his super sub appearances. And as soon as he got the Audi seat, Sauber, which will become Audi, people were like, they've got ambition to win races. So could that mean Hulk finally gets his podium? And we're due something barking mad happening.
Yeah,
like
we are.
Gasly or Ocon when they won their races, or like when Ricciardo won in Monza. We're due a really silly result, and we'd need, rain or something like that.
Why don't you lift a curse? Is there a curse that you would like to
Yes.
lift
Do you
on
know what
somebody
curse
in the
I'd
sport?
love to see happen?
As you are the witch.
Do you know what I'd like Logan Sargent to finish in the top 10. Because even when he got his only point so far, it was because Lewis and Charles got kicked out of the race in Texas and Logan was on the plane. I want to hear Logan Sargent cross the finish line in the points pen positions.
That would be amazing.
Just be such a nice feel-good story.
Okay, here we go then.
Right.
If Logan can finish in the top 10 before Silverstone, so he's got 3 races to do
And it
so,
could happen.
you don't have to go on stage in a witch's outfit.
Or if Nico gets his podium. They're the 2 curses we want to be lifted. They're the remaining 2. Okay.
Okay, so round off this little moment by doing another little cackle for us. Before we move on from Monaco, there is a final thing that I think we should talk about. I think it's worth talking about. Is something that you might have seen on social media a lot, and that is the criticism of certain content creators who were given paddock passes by teams to go and watch the Monaco Grand Prix with the teams, who were sort of posting content that was mainly just about the drivers being really hot and trying to find a date with a driver, that sort of thing. Monaco, I think, seemed to be really, really bad for it. There seemed to be a lot of really big content creators and influencers there that were sort of doing that type of thing. It was all over my TikTok, it was all over my social media. And it really upset quite a lot of female fans of the sport, because I think their take on it was, well, we've got women that have been given this amazing opportunity and are using that opportunity in their platforms to talk about the sport and just sort of focus on the fact that it's hot men in Formula One. And a lot of female fans felt like this was sort of, I don't know, taking them back like 5-10 years. A lot of female fans that have fought quite hard to have a space in this sport and have their voice heard.
As a woman in sport, what do you think?
It's an interesting one, isn't it? I understand that the sport is inviting people with really big platforms to races to try and engage with a completely different audience.
And grow the fan base, and get that.
Yeah, and some of these influencers have millions and millions and millions of followers. So their content about Formula One is going to be going out to a completely different audience.
And people see it and go, oh, that sport looks cool. I might flick it on. Oh, actually, this is fun. And they learn more. And fine.
But it's hard because as a woman in sport, whether or not you're working in it or you're a fan of the sport, it is hard work sometimes trying to get your voice heard and trying to be appreciated. And that is the stereotype is, oh, you only like sport because they're fit.
Well, I can't speak on behalf of a woman, obviously, but I do get a fair bit. It's amazing the amount of people who come up to me and say, by the way, God, isn't F1 popular with women? And I say, yeah, it's brilliant. And I have had in the past, fairly frequently, to be honest, oh, well, I wonder why, implying that it's because the drivers are hot. And I always make a point of correcting people and going, I don't know a single female F1 fan, genuinely, that is only into the sport because some of the drivers are hot. I just don't. And it does annoy me a bit. It's like, no, these people know their stuff. And even, the Drive to Survive generation, lots of girls who come in there, no, again, they've learnt their history. They know it. So I therefore get why it would be frustrating for certain female fans in particular to see someone
completely
banging on all weekend about how hot they are.
I think the point is as well is that there's a lot of female fans and content creators online that love the sport for the sport. They obviously, you can appreciate the drivers. And on this podcast, we make jokes about, Greg called Pierre Gasly Sexy Gasly. That was his nickname for a bit. We make jokes about it.
Oh, God, it's unquestionable. Charles Leclerc is a good-looking man. We're not going to skirt around that fact.
Yeah. Yeah, we can acknowledge that fact, but we can also talk about
We know
the
about
sport
the sport.
itself.
Yeah,
exactly.
And again, I have a similar things with me being gay and other gay F1 fans as well. Again, it really annoys me when it's like, so, well, you like F1? So, for God's sake, I've loved F1 since I was 9. Do you know what I mean? I love the sport. The fact that Charles Leclerc's a good-looking man is genuinely a coincidence.
Yeah.
I love the sport. They've got the helmets on during the race, for God's sake. I can't bloody see how hot they are.
You're not looking at them, are you?
No.
But I think there are so many people sat at home that would give their left arm. Well, there's so many people sat at home that would give anything to be able to go to a Grand Prix and have that experience.
Well,
and I think the thing is that these influencers that go, great, have fun, have a good time, you can have a laugh, but do a little bit of content. Like if I got to go, when I got to go into a garage for the first time, when I got to go to Silverstone, we were stood in the garage for the first time. It is unbelievable. Like, unbelievable. The sounds, what is happening, what is going on. Go and get your phone. Go and film some of that. Ask a mechanic what they're doing. Ask a mechanic how they got into that job. Just do a bit of imaginative content. It's not hard.
But we also need to give credit to the sport.
Yeah.
Because it does more than other sports. We say this a lot on the podcast, to engage a broad audience. F1 Academy, one example of many in the sport. It's great. I'd just like to see a little bit more from across the Formula One spectrum as a whole, efforts to go, let's get you to some races. And I've spoken before, I'd love to see some affordable ticket scheme. I'd love to see more competitions to give some of these paddock places to fans. And some of the teams do a fantastic job with this. I do think there's a little bit more to be done in terms of let's bring people in.
Yeah, agreed. Right, should we get on to some actual Formula One questions then? Let's start with one that we've had from a few people, including Danny and Becky.
Hi Christian, hi Betty. I'm Becky from Leamington Spa, and my question is about driver fines. We recently saw Lando Norris get fined €50,000 for walking on the racetrack, but who actually pays them? Is it the driver or is it the team? And where does the money actually go?
Oh, it's a good one, this. This is a good one. Let's deal with it in two parts. This was one of those that I thought I knew the answer to and had to text someone in F1 and double check. Do the drivers pay their own fines? Let's deal with that. Short answer, officially speaking, yes.
Oh.
Whether that actually happens in reality, I would say that's rare to almost never. Because I think it's probably in drivers' contracts that someone like, I don't know, I'm picking a driver at random, Fernando Alonso says to Aston Martin, by the way, I want this in my contract, you're paying any fines I get, and they're going, all right, fine.
You'd put that in your contract if you were a driver,
even if
wouldn't you?
not, it's probably being taken out of a budget by sponsors. I don't think there's any HR person at the FIA taking Lewis Hamilton's bank account details and withdrawing a fine. I just don't think that happens in reality.
There must be a driver that maybe hasn't had that in their contract, or the team's gone, no, honestly, you really screwed up, mate.
Yes, absolutely. Now, in terms of where the fine goes, there's drivers have made lots of jokes about this when they've been fined for speeding the pit lane or something, gone, oh, well, the FIA and the stewards are going to go out for a nice dinner. The FIA is a non-profit organisation. The FIA is the sports governing body. So it basically goes into funding the FIA. The FIA puts funding into motorsport series, into running motorsport all around the world. It basically goes in the FIA pot to keep that organisation running. But the FIA can't make a profit. So also things will end up being donated to charity. The FIA has charitable causes. But as much as the drivers take the mickey, that is not going into the bank balance and going into bonuses of FIA staff, because the FIA is a non-profit organisation.
Okay, next one is from Lewis. With so much talk about the driver market at the moment, I was wondering how much input or choice a driver actually has in which team they go to and what their contracts are. Obviously, a lot of the details happen behind closed doors, but do you know how much, say, the drivers actually have on who they drive for and when they move?
It's actually quite a complicated question to answer because it depends on who you are. Lewis Hamilton, 100% say. He can pretty much knock on the door of any team and go, I'd quite like to drive for you.
So he would have done that for Ferrari, right?
I want to go to Ferrari.
That was his decision, I imagine.
Let's take two examples of Daniel Ricciardo. Daniel had an offer on the table to stay at Red Bull several years ago and went off to Renault. And early seasons of Drive to Survive, you see Christian Horner's reaction of the surprise that he's said, this team's being built around Max. I want to go to Renault. Entirely Daniel Ricciardo's decision. Now, later on in Daniel Ricciardo's career, there's a bit of a different situation going on because he hasn't really got a choice. Now, when he had his sabbatical, it ended up being 3/4 of a year. I suppose you could say he had a choice if he could have really gone to Haas, but it didn't happen. But he chose, no, you're all right. But then in terms of where he ends up on the grid, Daniel hasn't really got any other options for him at the moment other than being in RB. So you could say he's not got much of a choice. What I don't think happens in Formula One so much is like the old school, and this happens in football a bit less now, but in football or soccer, you used to get an agent saying, I have negotiated a contract with you for Stoke City. Good news, you're off to Stoke. Pack your bags. We've seen that happen in football. Yes, you'll get agents in Formula One or people who are drivers' representatives saying, there's a seat at Audi or Sauber, and I think that's really good for you. You need to think about this. But mostly, the drivers are going to have a say in this. If Nico Hülkenberg did not want to go to Sauber, he wouldn't have gone.
Yeah.
So it very much differs depending on who you are. Does that answer the question?
That really does answer the question.
Oh, good.
I think it would be quite interesting to put this to a driver, like someone like Alex Albon. I'd be really interested
But
because
we dug into this with Alex.
yeah, about his decision to sign a new contract with Williams, and that would have been his decision. He was really comfortable. He would have had a agent to help negotiate, I assume, wouldn't he?
Definitely.
But that's his decision.
And drivers are having to weigh up, and we asked this, go back and listen to the Alex Albon chat. It was pre-Monaco, but so much of it is still relevant to listen to. That, I put to him that him and Lando had both said, I'm going to stay where I am. You see, you've got the stick or twist approach. Daniel Ricciardo could have stayed at Red Bull. I don't think the Renault, that he still drove really well at Renault, but he realised, I'm not going to win championships here, so I'll move again. I'll go to McLaren. That didn't work. Daniel Ricciardo would have certainly won more races if he'd stuck with Red Bull. That's an example of a move that he might have felt in his head, mentally, he needed to go. But maybe that move didn't go brilliant to plan. So you've had, therefore, people like Alex and Lando go, I'm going to stick where I am and have this whole thing built with me and help build it up. So it's a really interesting one.
Okay, next up. This is actually producer Jimmy's favourite thing in the entire world.
God, Jimmy was obsessed with this.
A Formula One life hack that Millie has sent in to us. So if you don't know this, then this might really help you. Jimmy didn't know it, and he is obsessed. Isn't that right, producer Jimmy?
Well, hang on. I want to get Jimmy in.
Okay.
We've not got Greg today, so
we don't have a sofa.
We'd have a sofa. I can fix this.
But Christian over there.
I've spotted something.
I spotted it, actually.
Come on, Jimmy. Oh, it won't go over the
It's not going to
tyres.
fit over the
Right,
tire. Maybe just in front.
Jimmy, come on, perch on the ladder. Jimmy, come on. Come on. Yes, it's going to work. Producer Jimmy's always really shy about coming on the podcast.
He
Do you
loves
just
it.
perch there and you can share Betty's mic? If you just perch there.
Yeah, I'll move my
It's
mic
a very
over for
versatile
you.
set. That's it. Jimmy, perch on the ladder. We'd have loved to get you a sofa, but it's not here
just
today.
checking with Xander, who's on cameras, where we're...
Xander will be fine. Xander's adjusting the camera. There we go. No, it's perfect, if anything.
It looks great.
Hello, welcome to The Fast and the Curious. There we go. Jimmy, welcome to the show seamlessly. Do you want to share my microphone or Betty's?
Like
Are you okay?
can you even notice me sat here? It's quite subtle, isn't it? I'm in the set now.
You're Jimmy. Would you? Jimmy, are we reading out Millie's question?
Yeah.
I think so.
Jimmy, you read out Millie's question because this is your thing and this is
Right.
fantastic.
So Millie says, not quite a question, more of an F1 life hack that people might like to know. I heard that one driver in each team is assigned to have a yellow strip at the top of their car throughout the season, so the FIA or commentators can identify them quickly and easily. I've been looking out for it and it seems to be true, i.e. if you look at Checo's car this season, he has a yellow block, but Max doesn't. Same with Lando and Oscar. Lando has the yellow block, Oscar doesn't. It's made watching the races and free practices so much easier and thought other people might like to know.
Now, when you were when you first discovered this,
Yeah.
you were texting me and Betty simultaneously.
Yeah, voice
And
notes all round.
Jimmy, very giddy. Now, Jimmy wasn't an F1 fan before he started producing this podcast, and I love that me and Jimmy have so many chats over the course of a weekend where Jimmy actually loves it, and it's brilliant. It's one of my favourite things that's happened that we've made an F1 fan in Jimmy.
Not this.
This is fine. This is perfect. Right. The you sat on a ladder, Jimmy. This is the most excited I've seen you almost about anything. Explain why.
Well, it's like if someone says, I'm going to watch a bit of F1, you should get like a pamphlet sent through your front door that is like, this is a thing.
Welcome, guide.
Yeah, a welcome guide. So it's like, this is qualifying, this is that. Oh, and actually, we've made a thing that makes it really easy to identify who the drivers are, but we're not going to tell you that.
Nobody notices it.
You're going to have to figure it out yourself. And as soon as you know it, you can't unsee it. It's so good. But then I was talking to you about this, and some of them choose whether they've got the yellow block, haven't they?
Yes, so this was going to be my question. Who chooses, like, because we all know F1 cars are all about weight and like one little bit of paint. Like, they've stripped paint off cars to make them lighter.
So it depends on the team.
Right.
Some team will have red and yellow, for example, and it's just red's number one driver, yellow's number two, i.e. who finishes first in the championship. Or if there's a clear number one and number two driver, like some teams have, that's how it works. But other teams, so I think red has been number one at Mercedes historically, and Lewis is obviously sort of probably, he's a 7-time world champion, the number one driver at Mercedes, but he chose yellow because he loves yellow, because it's his little homage to Valentino Rossi, the MotoGP great, who's one of his sporting heroes.
Of course.
So he picked yellow. Lando also picked yellow because that's sort of his personal brand, the whole gaming thing. Other examples, Ruth Buscombe, our friend, she picked theirs when she was at what was Alfa Romeo Sauber. So it depends completely. But yes, there is a little strip that helps people see the difference in the cars that nobody uses. And Jimmy, you just blew your mind when you found this out.
Yeah, it's incredible. And I really wish Greg was here, because I think we're on a similar wavelength
You
to
are.
this. And when he finds this out, if he doesn't know already, it's going to blow his brain. No, because he's similar to me and like, oh, who's that? Who was that? And now you can do it. Like, maybe you can't do it in person because it's speed of light, but on telly or any coverage or even in a picture, if you can't tell straight away, it's like, oh.
And it's just above the
Yeah, actually, because I'm going to be editing this, I'm going to put one on the screen on the YouTube version now to show the difference.
Okay.
That's there now. That's going to be there.
I love that you love this. It's your favourite thing about F1?
Yeah.
Great.
Definitely up there.
Jimmy, thank you. I'll now... Do you want to do
Goodbye,
the next
Jimmy.
bit with Betty while I take the ladder back? You can sit here if you want.
Pet's Corner. We've got to talk about Pet's Corner.
Oh, always. I love Pet's Corner. This is my favourite. Genuinely, it was so nice the other night when I was pottering about. I got like notifications on my phone of like, oh, someone sent me a picture of a Labrador. Like, it was just a really nice thing.
Someone sent me a picture of their dog. When you're sad, you just need pictures of dogs, and then it will honestly make you so happy. I do it every time.
For anyone who's missed this, this has been inspired by your dog McGinn. Remind us of this briefly.
Yeah, so my dog is called McGinn. He's named after Aston Villa player John McGinn, because my boyfriend is obsessed with John McGinn. He's not a Villa fan, but he just loves John McGinn as a player because he is elite, actually. So it got us thinking that there must be so many people out there with animals and pets, whatever, named after Formula One drivers. And we were right.
It's led to some brilliant things. We've not just got dogs and cats. We're sort of rapidly approaching an Alex Albon zoo territory. So Pippa has sent us a picture of her horse called Lando, who celebrated his first birthday during the Miami weekend. Happy birthday, Lando the horse. And
Great
if you're
name.
listening to this and you want to see these pets, the pictures are in the YouTube version of the show. Just search Fast and Curious if you're not already subscribed. If that's not a reason to go onto YouTube to see Lando the horse, whose birthday it is recently, there's nothing more we can do for you.
Yeah. Or what about Kimberly has sent us an entire gallery, by the way, of Jensen, her cat, who has his own Instagram account. And it's just amazing. Jensen, great name.
I said to Greg on the moniker, Debrief Jensen's a good name for a cat or a dog. I said this.
Then there's Max, who was sent in by Rafe. Sadly, no longer with us, but apparently loved McLaren news.
Oh, that's sad.
I know.
Shall I do maybe I'll do a sad McLaren news? It's genuinely so sad when you lose a pet. Like, it's the
Yeah,
worst
it's the worst thing in the
thing.
world, yeah. Go on then. A somber one.
Someone. McLaren news.
That was really nice.
I would like to think that Rafe would think that was a nice tribute to Max. I mean, we could do these forever, but for now we'll finish on Emily, who hasn't sent a picture, but she says her nephews have a guinea pig called Yuki.
Oh,
Brilliant. Any small animal should be called Yuki.
Yuki. Yeah,
Couldn't call
agreed.
Yuki a horse. That'd be ridiculous because Yuki's a very diminutive man. But No, that would be no.
You could.
No, you
it would
couldn't.
be like a play on words sort of thing.
No, you would no. But a hamster or a guinea pig, perfect.
I
I
love
had guinea
this.
pigs
Keep
growing
it coming. Keep it coming. Do you think McGinn knows what he's done? What he's got? What he's got this podcast doing?
Ask him.
Okay, I will do.
Please do.
Next,
Yeah.
we need to get out the George Russell Community Notice Board.
This needs a jingle. This does need a jingle,
Greg
doesn't
loves
it?
a jingle. He'll make it up when we.
All right, can we give Greg the task? Can Greg make us a George Russell's Community Notice Board jingle? He can definitely do that. Right, good. If he's not here, we'll give him jobs.
Yeah, exactly. If you don't turn up, then you've got to do your homework, Greg. Okay. Do you want to explain to everyone that's new what the George Russell Community Notice Board is?
We wanted a way of summarising brief bits of Formula One news that we think we should just give a mention and have a chat about. But we wanted a way of doing that. And we envisaged it in our mind like one of those notice boards you walk past in a village where people put things on like cleaner required or something like that. And we thought, that's often managed by like the parish council in the village. Who would do that if there was a Formula One sort of like village notice board? It would just be George Russell, wouldn't it?
Obviously.
He's an organiser. He's the head
Loves it.
He's the head of the racing drivers group. Like it would just be George Russell. So let's open up George Russell's Community Notice Board.
Okay, so last week you talked a lot about Andretti, who have been obviously trying to plot away in the background, trying to convince everybody in Formula One that they want to be the 11th team, right?
Yeah.
So we've got a new little bit of news about this. They've set up base. They've started employing people, like you explained last time. But there's a twist in the story now.
Yeah, well, in the past, because they've got to get permission from the FIA, the sports governing body, to enter the sport, and Formula One itself. And Formula One's obviously representing the teams. And the teams are reluctant to let them in because it reduces the prize pot money. F1's going to say, well, are you actually adding value to the sport? Because they want to keep the teams profitable because in the past, teams have really struggled for money. And the FIA had said, actually, we want you to come in. Yeah, we're totally happy with it. But now, the FIA's president, Mohammed Ben Sulayem, has said, actually, lads, you'd be better off buying a team. And the team that's always the two teams that people say, well, these are probably the most likely to be sold. Well, there's three really. Alpine, because they've struggled and are Renault that interested. Alpine insist and Renault insist, no, we're fully behind this team. We're going to build back. Haas, because they've often struggled for cash. That was what led to Gunter's departure. But again, the boss of Haas, Gene Haas, says, no, I'm staying. And then there's Red Bull's effectively B team, RB. People have wondered, would Red Bull get rid of their B team? Now they don't use it as much for sort of bringing through young drivers as they used to. But again, they're saying, well, no, there's no real plans to sell. So I'm now wondering, it's more difficult now because it felt to me before like Andretti had got to persuade just F1. Now it sort of feels like they've got to persuade the FIA again. So again, I'm just fascinated by this factory being built. They're employing people. They've employed Pat Simmons, one of F1's technical bosses. And yet it seems to be getting harder for them.
I mean, at this point, I would just give up.
Well, most people would. But they just seem...
It's just not working for you lads.
I think it's a really interesting one that there's no telling where it's going to go.
Well, we will follow it on the George Russell Community Notice Board.
And other little bits of F1 tidbit news. And if you've got any suggestions of what you'd like to put on the notice board and like us to discuss little bits of F1 news at Fast Curious Pod on the socials.
Shall we just quickly talk about next week's competition for those Silverstone tickets? Let's tease it.
We're very lucky to be at Silverstone. We're very excited to be there. We want to bring some listeners with us. So on next week's show, you will get all the details you need on how to enter the Fast and the Curious competition to win tickets to the British Grand Prix. We say this a lot on this podcast. Hit subscribe. You'll get a notification as soon as the podcast arrives. Subscribe and like the YouTube channel as well. It's the same thing. But next week, everything you need to know about how to be at the British Grand Prix, courtesy of this very podcast.
Very, very exciting. I feel like that is a very good time to finish our listener special.
A bit of a Q&A special. And Greg the other week was taking the mickey out of us collectively as a podcast for the fact that we answered one listener question. But we've been quite busy. There's been so much to discuss. So it feels like this was a good sort of admin episode of get through the backlog. I mean, we only answered like 4, but get through the backlog. Do keep your questions
Yeah, we
coming in.
probably could have done a few more and just been a bit quicker.
Few more, come on. We've made the tiniest dent in the backlog.
We're bad at this, aren't we?
We're not going anywhere. The podcast isn't
Yeah.
going. We've got all
coming in.
season, and the season goes on till December. It will be Christmas when this finishes. We've got like ages. So any questions, Fast Curious Pod. They can be sort of timeless. They can be very specific. Fast Curious Pod. Pop them in the YouTube section as well, in the YouTube comments.
Yeah, we'll get to them. So we'll be announcing all about the Silverstone competition in next week's episode ahead of the Canadian Grand Prix.
Oh, and I'll be in Canada, won't I?
And you will be there.
So that'll be exciting. I'll talk to you from Canada, and I've never been there before, so I'm really looking forward to seeing it. So yeah, I'll talk to you all from Canada on my F1 travels.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Christian.
Thanks, Betty.
Thank you. We'll be back soon. Goodbye.
Bye bye.